Welcome to the Wolverine.com pregame tailgate show. I am Michael Spath here with Tim Sullivan from the Wolverine.com and Ron Simpkins, former All-American linebacker at Michigan. We are putting two shows together this week. We are taking Inside the Huddle, which takes place at the Arena Sports Bar, which we're at every single week, every Wednesday, having the best beer, the best buffalo wings, best nachos. What have you had?
I've had the buffalo chicken sandwich.
Buffalo chicken sandwich. We're taking that show and putting together with our Saturday pregame tailgate show to give you the very best. We're going to have Ron Simpkins here, Phil Brabs, the kicker, and Doug Skeen, our offensive lineman, to talk offense, defense, and special teams every single week. This week, of course, is Michigan State. Ron, we were talking beforehand, you went 3-1 against Michigan State. Do you remember those 3 games more, or do you remember that one loss that you had against Michigan State?
I still remember the one loss more so than anything else. Any bowl game loss, any Super Bowl loss, any playoff loss, that was the loss that sticks in my mind, and you wait a whole year to play that game again so you can get a victory.
Now, when did that occur during your tenure?
It was my junior year.
So junior year, so you had a chance for redemption,
yes.
And what was that week like going into your senior year, knowing, hey, we lost to these guys the year before. I want to make sure that I walk away my Michigan career with a victory over Michigan State.
Well, what happened was, we had a regular week of practice, and the Thursday practice before, Bo usually comes and talks to the team, but we all got in the meeting room early, and I just got up and started talking. Before you know it, I was crying, and the other guys in the room were crying, and this went on for about 45 minutes because we had lost to them.
Wait, you spoke for 45 minutes straight?
45 minutes, crying, telling them what this game meant to me, the idea that we had seniors that had lost to them the year before, and when we exited the room, Bo was coming into the room. He saw how emotional we were, and he just said, that's it, we're ready to go.
Okay.
Now, the Michigan guys on this team didn't lose to Michigan State as juniors, but they want to avoid that, obviously, during their senior year, the guys who are going out this year. What sort of motivation is it in this type of rivalry to not go out with that loss, or to, experience as few losses as possible, I guess?
Well, they have experienced the talking of the Michigan Spartans after they've won a game and beaten Michigan. So I think that's motivation enough. The little brother thing still lingers out there. So I think the whole idea of them not having to get that effect of knowing what it feels like to lose will be the motivation for them to go out there and win the game.
Well, we're going to talk about little brother here in a little bit, because that phrase had been coined in 2007 after the game. Mike Hart said it. It kind of faded away, and then this week, actually, one of Michigan's players brought it out, which was a little bit surprising. But we will talk about that when we have Doug Skeen on, who just showed up and who's giving me some dirty looks, along with Phil Brabs. But looking at this game, we talked about this in terms of the Legends division. How important is this game in terms of the Legends division? Can Michigan lose this game and still win the Big Ten title?
If they lose this game, they're going to have a really tough job, because Michigan State doesn't have the toughest crossover games in the Big Ten. They don't play Ohio State, Penn State, or Wisconsin, which are probably the top 3 teams in that opposite division. What Michigan has to do is make sure that they don't go effectively 2 games behind Michigan State, because this will be the tiebreaker. Michigan already has that one loss. Michigan State is still undefeated in the league. If Michigan goes 2 games behind them plus that tiebreaker, it's going to be insurmountable. They'll have to go undefeated the rest of the year and hope for some really big help from Michigan State, losing to some teams that they probably shouldn't lose to.
Well, and Ron, during your career, let's face it, if you lost a game, if you lost to Michigan State, there was a decent chance that you weren't going to win the Big Ten title.
Right.
Because when you were playing in the 1970s, Ohio State and Michigan were at the top.
Right.
And if one team lost the game and it wasn't to Michigan or Ohio State, then you weren't going to win the Big Ten title. So is there, even though you didn't play with divisions like they had the Legends of Leaders, did you kind of feel that if I dropped a game that wasn't Ohio State, I wasn't going to win the title?
But during the course of my career, when we did lose games, it put more pressure on us, and we realized then that we had to win every game in the Big Ten Conference. So there was no margin of error that we had. So we went out there with the idea that we had to win every game. So the idea was now no Big Ten. get close. So the idea was to make sure that we won every game leading up to the Ohio State game, so that we had a chance to be in, have a shot at the Big Ten championship.
Not to compare necessarily, but do you think that Penn State game for Michigan a couple weeks ago might have helped light a fire under them and realize, the margin for error is completely gone? Is that what they needed, maybe?
I guarantee it did. The whole idea now is that the pressure's now on us, as opposed to before. We could lose the game and everything was still going to be okay. No, we got to win now. If you want to win, if you really want to win the Big Ten and get a shot at playing in the Rose Bowl, win out.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing, is that Michigan controls its destiny if it goes 5-0.
Right.
If it goes 5-0, it deals Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern. Northwestern's not even in the picture anymore. Minnesota. All those teams lose a game, and Michigan holds the tiebreakers. And I think that's a great feeling for a Michigan football player to say, listen, if I win every game, I'm going to Indianapolis. At the same time, if they lose
different
a game,
than Pasadena.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
If they lose a game, they're in a lot of trouble. They have to rely on their team. So, what does that mentality do to you when you know that I control my own destiny right now?
Well, but the other part that makes this different now is the fact that, like you say, you're going to Indianapolis to play. So you really got to get up twice. You got to get up for Ohio State, and if you get to that point where they're undefeated, you got to beat Ohio State. Then you got to then you got to play another game. You got to get up again. So it's a totally different thing when I played in the Big Ten. Our game was Michigan State rivalry and Ohio State rivalry. Get to that game, hopefully beat them, and then you got a chance to go to the Rose Bowl. But with the change now in the Big Ten Conference, it makes all the difference in the world now.
Do you think that the rivalry now is the Michigan State rivalry is as strong as it's ever been? Do you think this is more intense than when you played?
I think it's probably more intense now because of the fact that we lost so many games to them over the last 4 years, and that we beat them now. Now, do we go back to where Michigan State, we go back and forth, or do we dominate again for a couple of years and not give them a chance to, not be little brother anymore?
Welcome back to Ann Arbor, Michigan, the Inside the Huddle. I am Doug Skeen, happy to be back. To my right, the great and the one and only Ron Simpkins. And to my left, the great Phil Brabs. Guys.
But not the only.
It seems like it's been a month since we played a football game in this town.
It does.
God, this bye week lasted longer, it felt like. But let's go back and talk about the Indiana game. 115 points, Ron, in that football game.
Unbelievable. Like a video game. It was like a video game, and I'm watching saying I can't control anything. And the other team has total control of what's going on. It was like, it's like a video game. I haven't seen very many modern football games other than the Rich Rod game.
I wasn't going to bring that up. You brought it up. I wasn't going to bring that up.
But at the end of the day, I still say, I think Michigan fans are spoiled because we still won the game at the end of the day. Say what you want. You'd rather have a W than an L at the end of the game.
I agree. It was like a basketball game. Yeah. Although I went to the basketball game yesterday.
They played defense at Michigan basketball.
Yeah, it was 60 to 17 at halftime. It was like 117 to 50. But yeah, it was. I was at the Indiana game. And there were a lot of sparks on offense. I was just sitting there and watching the game. It was exciting to watch. A
lot of plays being made.
I said, all we got to do is get a couple turnovers, a couple interceptions, and we'll win the game. But you didn't know if that was going to happen or not.
Yeah, I felt like defensively, obviously, we gave up a ton of points. But I felt like guys were in position. They're just not quite closing the deal. And maybe that's just a maturity thing with some of those young secondary guys back there, and that's going to get better. But let's give some credit here to the Indiana offense. They're dropping a lot of points on a lot of people, including when they played Michigan State against that great defense. They dropped 28 points.
There's no shame in it. There's no shame in the fact that that team scored points on us.
We'll talk about this a little later. These teams, Indiana is no longer Indiana.
Right.
Yeah. And so let's give them credit where it's due. That's a pretty good football team, man. Yeah, there's no shame in taking a W the way we did. Like you just said, Ron, I don't care. I just want to win every week and get to a championship. That's the bottom line, and that's what they did. So it's a good thing. You won the game. Offensively, no shakeup in the offensive line. I think that went well. We did a couple things different. Did you guys notice they bring Taylor Lewan over to play the tight end position? they were keying on that, and they were flowing heavy to that side of the offensive line, and then they started going to the open end, back to the other side, and there was a crease over there. Jeremy Gowan continues to make plays. The guy's unbelievable. He's just a playmaker, and it was some sparks. And what can you say about the quarterback? Gardner played outstanding, tough down the stretch. You could tell he was hurting, but he grinded that thing out. It was great. I thought it was great to see him compete like that, and he's going to need a lot more of that as we now quickly transition into the biggest game of the year so far, the biggest rivalry game of the year so far, and anybody who doesn't say that this team is not one of our rivals is crazy. And for the fans out there, and for all the talk radio people that call in and say, well, Michigan State's not our rival, well, let's clarify, shall we, gentlemen? They may not be the number one rival, but in my book, they're right there at number 2.
They're number 1 because of the fact that they live in the same state. You go hear the Michigan State fans all year. They just come out of the woodwork when they get a W, So really, you don't want them to win because the talk continues for a whole year after that.
They've quickly become number 1 because if you can't get by state, it doesn't matter that last game. It's always an important game, but you can't get by state, you can't win a championship.
Yeah, it's the way that the conference is set up. You have to win that game. So let's talk about it a little bit. Here's the concern. Our offense against the best defense they're going to play all year. That Michigan State defense, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, please, I don't think that we're going to face a better defense, including whoever we play in the bowl game. That defense is outstanding.
I agree.
I mean, I think Dan Antonio, he's a defensive-minded coach, and you see it every year. They have a strong defense, and they ride their team on their defense.
Yeah, I don't think that defensive line of theirs is as good as it was 2 years ago with Jarrell Worthy. But those linebackers, led by the all-star in the middle, Bulla, outstanding.
I played for his
D'Amico Allen. D'Amico Allen, did you?
Yeah, I played for his grandfather.
It's a great football family. The guy is just a football player. Yeah. We would love that kid if you were playing in our team.
Any team that this kid plays on becomes a better team just because of his football IQ. It's just so good. And the fact that I just think that, I'll be honest with you, if our offense matches up and plays well against this defense, I don't think there's any other defense in the Big Ten that we should fear.
No.
We can play with it. We can play
that's what I mean.
On anybody.
This is the best defense we're going to play.
Right.
For the balance of the year, I don't care who they line up.
Yep.
And their secondary is for real. This is going to be the biggest challenge for our offense going in there and trying to make plays. Now, what scares me is the recipe that D'Antonio has built to defend Michigan with the read zones. You just build that big fence. Just keep it all in front. Give them the underneath, and when the ball is kept in the quarterback's hand to run, you punish the runner. And we've seen that with Denard. Now, how's it going to be any different Saturday? That's my worry.
I don't think they're going to run Denard as much. I'll be honest with you. I think our passing game has to be the key to us winning this game against Michigan State. We got to push the ball up the field. Not that we got to hit some dink and dunk stuff on the side, but if we don't attack them up the field and get the ball trying to get to the end zone, I think it becomes a totally different ball game.
Yeah, I like it last week. I sound spat earlier. In the Penn State game, we'd line up tight, we ran the ball. We spread out, we threw the ball. A lot of it was third and long. We had to spread out and throw the ball. Against Indiana, if you watched it, I was watching, the line would line up tight, they threw the ball. They spread out, they ran the ball. Gave Funchess some space to run the ball, and he ran the ball well. And Gallon was magnificent. So I agree with you completely. I think we have to. I think the weak point is the secondary. I don't think we need to go deep too early. I think we want to get Gardner confidence on the road, but I think we got to find Gallon on slants. I want to see slants, short passes, and get some confidence. No, so we're on first down, play action.
Ron wants to go deep down.
That's I think has been killing us all year. We get conservative. We got a tight end now.
I don't think it's conservative.
What? No, I mean
it's just getting a flow of an offense. You defensive guys don't know anything you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about.
We go into a shell. I think we move Funchess out. We go deep. You bring Gallon underneath. You switch them up. Do that kind of because now. all defenses know that this guy will beat you deep. We hadn't had that threat the first 5 games.
Well, the deep threat is Funchess.
Right, and Gallen was the guy that we were thinking was the deep threat.
He's the one you keep honest. You send Funchess deep down the middle or down the edge, that's fine. And then it opens up stuff underneath.
For everybody else.
Right. That's what Brad is saying. Linebackers have no idea what
I'm saying go
about.
deep on second down, not first down, okay?
I don't let, this is the other part, don't let them dictate to you what you want to do.
That's critical.
We want to do when we want to do it. To me, that's the difference in winning this football
That's critical.
game.
I think we got to come out and punch them in the face.
Okay.
We got some agreement.
Or running the ball. Either way.
I agree. We got to bring it to them.
It's not a 3 yards in the cloud of dust offense.
No, it's not. And not against that defense.
Right.
It's not going to work.
And we got to make plays. And if we keep it conservative and allow them to keep us pinned in, put 9 people in the box, and we want to run the ball against 9 in the box, we're not going to be successful.
Nope.
I'm going to tell you right now. Their defense and their linebackers and their front 7 is built to play that kind of football.
Absolutely.
I'd rather get them out in space and make them become football players.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's talk about the other side, the other matchup. The Michigan State offense versus our defense. Now, here's the thing that I've watched this Michigan State football team. You have a great defense, allows your offense to just take its time and come along, and come along, and come along. They're coming along.
And wait for them to get you field position.
And they're coming on. Just play field position football. And you know what? I think they feel like if they can hold Michigan, hold us to 14, 17 points, that's enough.
Oh, I agree.
That's enough. And the challenge will be for our defense to shut down and keep that offense stuck in the corner like we've seen other teams do to that offense. So I don't know how else you really draw it up. I don't think that's the strongest offensive line they've had in the last couple of years.
No.
Clearly their quarterback is still in the developmental stage, and they don't have outstanding wide receivers. They don't have the huge dominating tight end. So I like that matchup a lot.
That seems to me, though, this is where we should take advantage of it and go after them.
I'm with you.
Make their quarterback make plays. Force them to run the ball, try to run the ball, get them in 3rd and long in those kind of situations, as opposed to rushing 3s, dropping 8, sit back there, wait, we're going to hit, to prevent defense.
Ron, I think you're going to see Madison dial up
I hope he
all
does everything
kinds of magic.
I think
he's going to be coming from all different angles.
Because I think if the defense turns the tempo of the game up, I think it changes the whole complexion of what we want to do as far as overall. Because now the offense now can come out and take control. If our defense just pins their offense and doesn't allow them to do anything, we can take some chances there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. So, and then the X factor, the special teams and field position is going to be huge in this game.
I agree.
Punting. Brabs, you've said it before. You've quoted Coach Schembechler. The most important play in the whole football game, punt. This field position is going to be huge.
I think absolutely, because I think they have the better defense. We have the better offense. So whoever can win that special teams, it could be a differentiator. I mean, assuming turnovers equal.
Right.
Turnovers
or
equal.
no turnovers.
Or is what I'm saying. I think the special teams comes critical. I mean, Gibbons has struggled a little bit in the last couple of games, but he's about to surpass. I think he has the most consecutive extra points in a row. I think he's probably 1 or 2 away. I know he's really close on that. At State, he could beat that record. I still think he's consistent. He had the big kick against State last year, where literally he misses that kick, we lose the game. He made it, we win the game. So I think we actually have a better special teams. They have a great punter. I think we have a better kicker. State's got that crazy wind. I don't know. You guys as players, not that I wasn't a player, but that wind was like, it didn't matter what way I was kicking. It always seemed like it was in my face.
You're right, Brad. I never thought about the wind.
They have a huge fan back there.
Is that what it is? Brabs is up.
Spartan Bob, the guy with the clock all those years ago, he's got a controller back there.
Hit the switch, huh?
Yeah. Over there, he's like,
guys, speaking of the crazy stuff that happens in these games, let's talk a minute about, let's go back a little bit and share with some of the fans that may not understand the heightened level of violence in this game. And I was talking to a friend earlier today, and I shared this story. In 1992, I had never played in a more violent, nasty football game in our senior year. It was a chippy game. The talking never stopped. Of course, Everett never stopped talking, which was good. I love him for it. They never stopped. The score was 35-3 at the end of the game, and it was like it just begun. We still wanted to kill each other. And I remember the referees in that game had to take a timeout, stop the game. One went over to their bench, and one came over to our bench to tell the head coaches, you got to get control of this because it's about to get out of hand and just turn into a street brawl. We wanted to kill them, and they were trying to kill us. And it's just the way this game is played.
Right.
Ron, was it any different in the 70s?
Never any different. I'll be honest with you. Well, it was 3 yards in a pile of dust then, so it was really more physical then. If somebody threw a pass, it was a quotation. If somebody threw the ball, they're gutless, But the thing that comes to mind to me is just the idea that we never. I don't know about you guys. We never stayed in Lansing. When we played Michigan State, we never stayed in Lansing.
No, we stayed in Jackson.
Exactly. And rode to Michigan State.
Yep.
Bo said he would never stay there.
Never.
He helped build that dislike towards them during my freshman year, and the idea that what Michigan State rivalry meant. And I'll be honest with you, that game really taught me what big time college football was all about.
Yeah.
Because we were rolling through the Big Ten season my freshman year, and every game seemed the same. And all of a sudden, the intensity just picked up. The upperclassmen, there were fights in the practice field and that kind of thing. Everything just changed, and it made me realize how important this game was. And as an upperclassman, you just continue on with that, and you pass it on to the next group of guys.
Yeah, it's.
So when I was there, it was a lot of those guys that played at State, they got rejected by Michigan, and so they always felt like they had something to prove. We came in, and our job was to beat Michigan and win that game. And man, I swear they would pull out punches. They were dirty, but they wanted to win. They were going to do everything to win, and clock. Errors when I was there. There was a bunch of crap. I don't know when you guys were there, so I don't know if you guys did this, but all my 5 years playing State Week, they would pull out the green tape. There would be green tape all through our locker.
Oh, yeah.
We would tape our helmets green.
Oh, absolutely.
And
scout team, my freshman year, I was Tony Mandarich. I got to meet Tony Mandarich as a freshman. And all I did all week long was just get in a fight. That's all I did was fight all week long.
You tried to build that you tried to act like State that week, and you put on the green helmet. And that was special. I always felt like the State was a special game.
It was a great week.
And even as a kicker, I hated those guys. I was there for the clock. I was there for TJ Duckett, catching the end zone.
Did you get in a fight during week?
No, but here's the deal.
Fight?
I played them in 2002 at the Big House. So the clock season happened before that. The season before that, we played them in our house. I was doing kickoffs. I had 2 tackles that day at the 25-yard line.
Yes.
I had 2 tackles. I wanted to hit those guys because I don't like those guys.
It's a special game in a unique way,
Absolutely.
and it brings out everybody's highest level of violence.
It really does.
And if there's a chance to be taken and a shot, then a chance gets taken and someone takes the shot. No. You don't like to see the dirty stuff, the stuff that they did the last time we were up there and ripping Denard's head. I don't like any of that. I don't like it. I didn't like it when I saw a guy. I remember, I'll never forget, a green glove in the bottom of a pile my senior year trying to rip my eye out. I don't like that stuff. I like clean, butt-kicking football where you're trying to legitimately kill each other within the rules of the game, and that's what I hope we see Saturday.
Agreed.
We will be back to Ann Arbor to discuss more of the Michigan Agricultural College. Did I say that? Michigan State Week.
And college.
About our favorite team, the Maize and Blue. Soon from the Arena Sports Bar.
Welcome back to the Wolverine.com tailgate show. I'm Andy Reid, and I'm here with Doug Skeen. We're going to talk about the offensive line because there have been a lot of movements, a lot of changes there, and I know that's a spot that's close to your heart. So we're going to go with Kyle Bosch to start with. He checked into the lineup after Joey Brzezinski injured his ACL against Indiana, and he is just the second true freshman to see time along the offensive line since a guy you played with, Dean Digman. So playing with Digman, what about an offensive lineman, or what traits do you look for that can kind of help somebody play as a true freshman?
Well, number one, how many years has it been? 20-something years since the last time this happened?
Well, there was Justin Boren, but we'll gloss over that one. So he's just the second one since 1987.
Let's go back to Digman.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult transition to go from high school ball to the Big Ten field. And it takes, first of all, physical capabilities. And Digman, similar to Bosch, Digman was stronger, I think, than Bosch is at this point. But it takes the physical capabilities coming out of high school. And secondly, and most importantly, it takes a mental swagger where you feel like You can line up anyone, and I'm not just going to block him. I'm going to dominate him, because young linemen get caught up in assignment, footwork, technique, and all the little X's and O's and all the little things that you work on every day. And to be a really good lineman, you got to start to let those things turn into your secondary focus. And now you're just kind of out there, and you're feeling loose, you're feeling comfortable, and you're just playing. So, how many high school kids or freshmen can go from playing high school ball, where you're probably blocking guys that are half your size, half your weight, and quite frankly, it's not hard. These young kids that are 6'5", 300 pounds in high school, they can throw guys around in high school easily.
Yeah.
And I remember as a high school player myself, the offensive coach just saying, "Doug, you know what? Just pick a side you want to throw him, and just throw him." "Okay, coach." And then you're this big in high school, and you can do those things.
Yeah.
Then you step on the practice field, and you're looking across from a guy who's the same size as you, and that doesn't work anymore. You have to take the proper steps. You got to put your face where it belongs on the targets. You got to bring your hands and put them in very specific places, because if you don't, you get beat and somebody gets tackled. So all those technique things combined with, most importantly, the question, go back to Dingman, most importantly is a swagger. Dingman had a swagger, and he had an aggressiveness about him where he was out to break you in half. Not just block you, but crush you. And that's the kind of thing you have to have. And so if you can start off as a young player and you're good enough to crack the lineup, and Bosch is, the future is unlimited for a guy like that. Because Bosch still doesn't have his refined college football body yet. When he gets there, he's going to be even better and more capable.
You mentioned that. I mean, between strength gains and the things you have to learn and playing with that comfort, I think offensive line is the most developmental position on the field, and it takes time.
It takes the longest amount of time.
When did you, as a player, feel like you were ready to get on the field?
Probably, looking back on it now, with probably not till my third year at least. It's year number one, your head is spinning. Mm-hmm. Most of our guys, we're head spinning, just getting used to the pace and the size and the competition and the speed of the college game. And then it takes a year to get your body from high school to college condition. And a lot of these kids now, they come out of high school, they're in incredible shape, but they still haven't gone through the stamina and the lengthiness of the desire, or not the desire, but the difficulties of college training. So it takes a while, and you just said it, it's absolutely true. The transition from high school offensive line to collegiate offensive line is the longest of any position group on the field. You see high school kids step in at running back or a wide receiver or even a quarterback.
Yeah.
And they have success. Very few can step off of a high school field onto a college field as a freshman and be effective.
Yeah. I mean, just in the history of Michigan football, there's been 10.
Yeah.
Just 4 have started. Bosch is most likely going to be the 5th on Saturday. So what did you see from him on Saturday, or on a couple Saturdays that go against Indiana? Did he look overwhelmed? Did he look pretty good in there?
No, I was watching him very closely, and I was sitting at home with my DVR, running it back and forth and watching his footwork. I thought he handled himself just pretty well, and I was looking at him compared to Bryant and compared to Joey in there before he went out, and I didn't see a massive drop-off.
Yeah.
I saw him just as effective, if not more effective on some plays. Granted, he did set a little bit too wide on a 3 technique and got beat to the inside a little bit. Bryant did the same thing in his first start against Central. The little things that get refined as the weeks go by, they watch the film, they work on it in practice. Those things are easily fixed. You transition what you see, what you did, to the next opportunity in the game. Overall, there's no drop-off there. So those were good things that in time, when you get comfortable out there, that's what I mentioned earlier, Andy, the swagger.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come until you realize, all right, you know what? Not only can I start out here, not only do I belong, but dang it, I'm pretty good. And now I transition from just executing my assignment to how bad am I going to beat you? And that's when you really get good.
Yeah. Is it just a special tick in somebody's brain that they have that when they come into school?
Some guys have it,
yeah.
and some guys, there's a spark. Down deep inside, there's a dark side to everybody. And some guys, it just takes a spark. And for me, personally, it was my line mate, Steve Everett, and I watched him, and it just kind of sparked the whole room. And guys like Dean Dingman, guys that had an intense desire to beat someone and just break their spirit and have fun along the way doing it. And it lit a fire in me, and it lit a fire in other guys. And then all of a sudden, now you got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the whole room looking to break someone's spirit instead of just completing your assignment. And there is a difference. So it's a maturation process, but it can't come until you get start number 1 under your belt, and then number 2, and you go to a hostile place like Michigan State, and you have success, and you realize, I do belong out here, and now I'm going to take it to the next level.
That's an interesting point, because that might be something this line is lacking across the board. Luan, I think, plays like that. But now, if you've got Bosch, who's going to be a regular starter in there, who's going to play like that, maybe some of these other guys are going to catch on.
Well, you hope so.
Yeah.
It can't come, though, until the time passes and you get enough starts underneath your belt where, like I said earlier when we started talking about this, where assignment, footwork, hand placement, those things just become second nature, and now you're just out there having fun. And you can watch veteran offensive lines. Go back and look at old game tapes. Look at some of the better offensive lines in college. You can just tell they're having fun out there. And the X's and O's is secondary, and up here is, all right, we got this. And we're way on this.
I think I was immediately encouraged when his second play of his career is a 4th and 1 from the goal line, and he pulls
nice kick
and
block.
just destroys a guy to break a touchdown run.
He got to the edge,
and
the edge rusher came up. It was a nice kick block. The ball went right inside his hip. It was a nice job. He got into movement. Just for him to be able to move, I thought, all right, this kid can move. And he's, it was a nice block.
Yeah, that's something I think that's going to definitely help this team, because they haven't really had that kind of movement on that line at this point.
Well, not to the where we want, which is why we've seen the constant rotation, and that's not the way you draw it up. We got another set of 5 guys in there, and then another set, and then ultimately what you'd want is you got a dedicated set of guys who aren't moving unless there's an injury. And don't forget, a tight end. It would be nice if Taylor Lewan didn't have to go line up in the tight end position. Because we need more effective blockers there. I do think Jake Butt is going to be that guy when he gets stronger and more experienced for the same reasons I just described.
Exactly.
He's going to be a really nice player. He's not quite there yet.
You mentioned the shuffling. They maybe have possibly found the 5 for the rest of the year. Eric Magnuson is a redshirt freshman tackle. He's a tackle. He has a tackle's body, but he moves to right guard last week, and he looked pretty good in there.
I thought he looked really comfortable. And look at Kalis compared to Magnuson. Physically, Magnuson's a little bit longer, a little taller, a little longer, but Magnuson just seems to be a little more comfortable, a little more flexible. Kalis seems a little more stiff. It's just some very subtle things that I see in there with the way they move. And I like the way Magnuson pass protects. He's got an offensive tackle's length in his arms. And again, not by much. I mean, if you put these two players next to each other, I don't think you see a whole lot of physical difference. One's a little bit longer than the other. But he just seems to be a little more comfortable out there. And when I watched Kyle play against Penn State, there was some difficulty picking up linebackers on combo blocks and a little bit of stiffness in his pass blocking. It's nothing that's going to prevent him from being a superstar in the future. These things will be worked out. But in this season, in the here and now, we're trying to win a championship. And you know what? The coaches made a decision to mix it up again and try a different starting 5. And right now, this is it. So hopefully it is it, because you can't get that fluid flowing with all 5 until you let them play together.
I mean, they always talk about how they're learning every position along the offensive line, but from experience, how difficult would it be to be a tackle, to to expect to be a tackle here, and in less than a week, jump inside?
It's easier to go from tackle to guard than it is from guard to tackle.
Why is that?
The speed off the edge, and when you're playing at guard, you've got, chances are, whatever pass protection you've got, if you're the right guard, I've got my right tackle here, and I've got my left or center to my left. You got help. There's a limited amount of space between you and your teammates. When you move out to tackle, you may have help to the inside. There's nothing out to your right unless a tight end is in there.
Yeah.
And they leave him in to max protect. Maybe that's the case. Maybe you get a back to come over and help, but there's much more space to work in over there, which is why offensive tackles need to be able to move better than guards.
Yeah.
So it's an easier transition going that way.
Yeah.
Man, he can move. And you know, I've watched him in when he was playing tackle in pass, he looks good. So it made sense that he could make that transition down to the guard position and be just fine.
Yeah.
So the bigger challenge is to go the opposite way.
Right. And I like right now. Do you think this is the 5 that's going to finish the season?
Yes.
Yes.
They don't want to mix it up anymore.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you're getting down to crunch time.
Yeah. God forbid any more injuries.
Yeah.
This has got to be it. I think Magnuson looks good at guard. Bosch looked good. We'll see how he plays Saturday. I don't think it's set in stone.
Whole different test.
It's a whole different test,
Yeah.
absolutely. We'll see how he plays. It's not set in stone, and I have full confidence that Coach Funk and Al Borges and the head football coach, Coach Hoke, are going to, whoever they think is going to give us the best chance to win the football game is who's going in there.
Yeah.
And I'm all right with that. That's what you have to do.
What's really encouraging about the recent developments along the offensive line is obviously the goal right now is a Big Ten championship and to finish this season strong. But looking forward, if you look at all the experience they're getting along there, you've got Magnuson's probably moving back to tackle, and he's going to have 4 or 5 games of experience on the field, which is huge considering they're losing 2 fifth-year senior starters.
Yep.
You're going to have Kalis, who has a ton of experience. Glasgow at center, who's got a ton of experience. Bosch is going to have plenty of experience inside. Bryant is going to compete for playing time.
Yep.
And then at that other guard spot, you go from, again, rebuilding a line to having 4 spots with extensive experience along the offensive line from the previous season.
And then the rest of those young guys that we have not seen yet, hopefully you're having the development that we would expect with all the practice time that they're put in, and they're put in pressure situations of practice. Those guys have got to develop too. You want to be studs across your front 5.
Yeah.
And then the next guy in the game, he needs to be a stud too. So, young guys tend to find their way in and say, well, I'm going to be the backup now. And you got to challenge yourself to move past that. Don't settle to be a backup. Always press for time, because as we've seen this year, if these young guys have seen anything, hey, if I practice well, I'm going to crack that lineup. These starting lineups are not set.
Yeah. All right. That fantastic talk about the offensive line. And we'll be back here from the Arena Sports Bar.
Welcome back to the Wolverine.com Tailgate Show. I am Tim Sullivan of the Wolverine.com. Joining me, former Michigan All-American linebacker Ron Simpkins. Ron, we've talked a little bit about the rivalry already between Michigan and Michigan State. Let's get a little bit more into the X and O part of the football. We've seen that Michigan has had some up and down linebacker play maybe over the course of the year, and I think...
No, I don't.
Well, okay, so well, first of all, then let's evaluate the play. Do you think it's been up and down? Do you think it's been a high? Do you think it's been low?
To be honest with you, without Ryan, I think they were adequate. They did a good job.
Okay.
The guys he had in there. With Ryan back in there, I think it takes the linebacker play up to another level. But I think these guys have done a good job this year as far as, playing the run, playing the pass. I think it's more scheme than anything else. I think that the reason why we're not as effective as we could be on defense.
Mm-hmm. What do you think that Ryan has brought to the defense that they didn't have before he came back in the last couple games?
Well, I talked about it before. He's got that it factor. When he blitzes, it's a whole different kind of situation. He has that shoulder dip that leverage where he comes up and gets through the offensive lineman, gets his shoulder past him, gets pressure on the quarterback. He may not hit him all the time, but he gets pressure on the quarterback. When he drops back in coverage, the threat of him blitzing makes a offense coordinator have to change what he wants to do, that kind of thing. So he makes the whole defense better when he's on the field.
Now, is that the sort of thing that a linebacker has to do from the blitz, or is that something that maybe if there was a different set of defensive talent on the field that they could maybe get from the defensive line? Is that the sort of thing that they maybe want to do in the future from the defensive line?
Well, I think based on the way the talent level is at Michigan right now, he is the best pass rusher.
Okay.
So like I say, if you use him at defensive end or if you blitz him as a linebacker, inside or outside or whatever, and the thing I think that from this point on, the difference right now is going to be putting him in different positions so you don't know where he is. You can't lock him down on one side of the field and now the offense knows where he is. If you can move him around a little bit now, I think it gives him an advantage. It gives Michigan defense an advantage too, relationship to him being allowed to make plays.
Now, regardless of whether or not Ryan has been on the field, the Michigan rush defense has actually been very good this year. Now, they've played a lot of teams that like to pass the ball a lot, but they've shut down what runs they have faced. What do you think about how they've performed against the run? Has it been a thing where the linebackers, obviously your old position, have really performed well? Has it been a thing where it's been a total team effort, do you think?
I think it's been a team effort. In the modern day of football now, and like I say, it's not, isolation with the fullback hitting up in there, that kind of thing. They're running the pistol and that kind of thing. So you got to play run pass, and I think they've done a good job of that this year. But against Michigan State, I think it comes down to, can you just take away the run completely, make them a passing team? If you don't allow them to run the ball, now you dictate to them what they can and can't do.
Now that's something that the Michigan State defense has definitely been talked about a lot, is they're great at shutting down the run. These two defenses going not against each other, but in the same game, kind of their teams are going against each other. Do you think that the Michigan defense has what it takes to I guess, outshine that Michigan State rush defense, especially on first and second downs, where you force the defense or the opposing offense to pass once you shut them down on the run in those first two downs?
Well, going back to what you said, I really do think it's against our defense against their defense.
Okay.
When Bo was coaching us, it was like their best linebacker, Simpkins, can you outplay this guy?
And you
Curtis
never
Greer,
could, right?
Well, we tried to. And then Curtis Greer, can you outplay this guy? Gene Bell, can you outplay this guy? And I think that's what makes you as a football player rise to the occasion in relationship to being a better player. And I think, to be honest with you, I think our defense in situations are better than their defense, but they put their defense in a better position as far as attacking. Okay. We're more kind of like a read defense now. We blitz, based on strategy and formation, that kind of thing. They just come after you. They don't care what the situation is a lot of times. If they want to rush the quarterback, they rush the quarterback.
Now, this is the sort of thing that you mentioned. Is it Ron Simpkins as middle linebacker against the Michigan State quarterback, or is it Ron Simpkins as middle linebacker against the Michigan State middle linebacker, where you're trying to outdo him even though you aren't on the field at the same time?
Well, what I'm trying to do, and that's what I was trying to do in that situation, really was put myself and my guys in the best position to win. So a lot of times it became more strategy. It's like a chess game. You talk about the offense coordinators, the defense coordinators. Okay, well, as a linebacker and a signal caller, making decisions on angle of defense, that kind of thing. Now you become the guy on the field that makes decisions in relationship to where the line goes, where they don't go. Do you drop back, that kind of thing? Do you change the defense, that kind of thing? And in this game, it's really different now because with the formations and everything else, you have to be able to change the defense.
Now, this is the sort of thing that we've talked a lot about. Michigan maybe hasn't recruited quite as well in the recent passes they have over the course of Michigan football history, but they're still performing pretty well now. The defense that they're putting on the field this year, how much of that do you think is attributed to scheme, and how much do you think maybe the scheme could step up a little bit, and how much is just the execution and perfectly executing the scheme that Greg Madison puts together?
I really think it's about scheme right now this year, because this team is as talented as any team that Brady Hoke has had, I think, on defense. Okay. But I think the difference is, we sit back in situations, we rush 3, drop 8, that kind of thing. I just wish we were an attacking defense defense, made the quarterback have to make plays, put our defensive backs in a position where they didn't have to sit back, drop, and read and that kind of thing. Play man-to-man, run down the field, get safety help over the top, that kind of thing. I think we become a better team, and we have the opportunity to make more plays if we play defense that way.
Now, within the scheme, you think the players, for the most part, have performed pretty well. Obviously, a top 30 defense in the country. They haven't been doing poorly, but within the scheme, you think they're doing pretty well?
Based on what they've been asked to do in relationship to, dropping back, reading a lot more, that kind of thing, as opposed to attacking and forcing the action, I think we've done a good job.
Now, obviously, as a linebacker, you were the guy who was blitzing. You weren't the guy who was rushing the passer on those 3-man rushes.
Right.
What did that do for you? Maybe even necessarily not as a guy who was covering somebody downfield, but when you were on the field, how did it help you out when they were rushing maybe more guys, maybe rushing 5 off with 3 coming off the same edge or something, to really make your job easier?
Well, to be honest with you, we had a lot of say-so in relationship to what was happening on defense. With what kind of defenses, blitzes we were doing in situations, what we thought would work and that kind of thing. So we had a lot more involved in relationship to the course of the week as far as preparation and that kind of thing too. I don't know if these guys had the same opportunity to do that kind of thing, but a lot of times they would ask us, "What do you think?" In relationship to the blitz packages and things we have. What do you think will work? That kind of thing. And it gave us a chance to be more involved in the game and have some say-so in relationship to what was going on.
Now, how much do you think of that has changed?
I think it's totally changed.
Or is it just the change of football over the years with the advanced offenses, the advanced defenses that you see?
Yes, I think based on the formations and the spread offenses and that kind of thing, I think the defense coordinators now want to have more control over what goes on based on formation. I think the guys have less decision-making in relationship to changing the defense and that kind of thing. So I think modern-day football now, what they're doing, I think with the talent we have in Michigan, I think we should be a more attacking defense and coming after people.
Now, one thing that maybe not attacking as much can help with is preventing the big play. And the trade-off is that Michigan has not let up very many big plays so far this year defensively. Do you think that has really helped them succeed as a defense? Do you think that's something that is continuable over the course of the rest of the year in preventing those big plays with the scheme that they're running with the talent that they have?
Well, what I'm hoping is that now we become a team on defense that blitzes more when we want to. And we dictate the tempo of the game as opposed to sitting back reading and waiting for a quarterback to either make a bad throw or incompletion, that kind of thing. And I think the confidence level of the coaches should have built there by now too. So that now we become a team that's not concerned about what they're not going to do, more concerned about we're going to make plays and make them have to react to what we're doing on defense.
Now, in the same vein, is how much of that can be controlled by maybe the other side of the ball helping you guys out, not committing the big turnover and putting your own defense in the short field and maybe building up a lead earlier in the game, and you can force teams to have to pass so the defense can maybe have a little bit more free reign to blitz.
Yeah, well, that's true. But again, I'm a defensive guy, and my mindset is always the defense to dictate what happens on the field. If our defense causes turnovers and puts them in bad field position, we control the field position and control the clock, and we control in relationship to where our offense gets the ball and that kind of thing, and gives them more opportunities to score too.
All right, Ron Simpkins, All-American linebacker or something I can definitely say I never accomplished. We'll be right back with the Wolverine.com Tailgate Show.
Welcome back to the Wolverine.com pregame tailgate show. I'm Michael Spath here with Phil Brabs. And Phil, it gets often overlooked in these games, Michigan versus Michigan State. Everybody's talking about the Michigan State defense and how Michigan's offense is going to match up with them. And, outside of that, can Michigan State's offense make enough big plays against Michigan's defense? But let's talk about those special teams, because right now, when you look at it, Michigan State has always had pretty good special teams in this rivalry. Mike Sadler right now is a great punter, maybe the best punter in the Big Ten. And what does Michigan counter with here? You've got Matt Weil at punter and Brandon Gibbons. Let's start with Brandon Gibbons. Here's a guy that made 16 in a row at one point. Had set the record for consecutive field goals, beat Remy Hamilton's record. I think he beat yours too. But now he's missed a couple. He missed 3 of his last 4 against Penn State. He had one of them blocked that would have won them the game. He had a kick blocked against Indiana. Where do you think his mindset is going into this game?
Well, I first want to agree that I think special teams is going to play a big, like the turnover battle, I think special teams is just as important. So they got a great defense. We have a better offense. So I think it's coming out of special teams. They have a great punter. Their kicker's young. We have a kicker that had a rough year, that has the last 2 years has really stepped up. He had a bad game against Penn State. The block kick against Indiana, he hit the ball. He's hitting the ball too low. But we talked earlier. I mean, he's on the brink of beating the all-time record for number of consecutive extra points. I don't know how many. He's got 100,000 in a row by now, but he is consistent. And one of the reasons he's consistent, maybe I can show you one day, is because his form is very compact, and because of that, he's like a Garrett Revis. You don't remember Garrett? I mean, Garrett.
I was there for Garrett Revis.
Remember Garrett? Who's the leading scorer in Michigan football history? Spath.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree.
Garrett Revis, number 38, right? Why? Because he had a compact stroke. The guy couldn't hit a 50-yarder to save his life, but he could make the short kick. It was consistent. He hit the ball low, and Gibbons is a lot like that. It allows him to be consistent, but he'll hit the ball low. So what's going on in Gibbons' mind? Gibbons hit a huge field goal last year against State. He misses that kick near the end of the game, we lose the game. So he knows what it means to make big kicks. He had one in the Sugar Bowl. I think almost as big as the Sugar Bowl kick, and maybe I would say even bigger because it's against State, and that game means so much to us right now. Was last year when he put us up near the end of the game.
Well, you're pretty adamant about here. You're keeping like pumping your fist.
I think Gibbons. I don't worry about Gibbons. Worry about Gibbons. We just hit a big kick against State on the road. Gibbons will hit that big kick too.
Well, and that's what the question is that say this is a 21-21 game, fourth quarter. Michigan's got the ball driving. They have to settle for a 42-yard field goal. I mean, is it the experiences? Do you, as a kicker, do you think back to the Washington game in 2002? Do you think back to those positive memories, the Sugar Bowl for Gibbons, the Michigan State game for Gibbons? Are those the memories that you have, the thoughts that you have? So you think about that when you're lining up for the 42 field goal, and not Indiana, I kicked it too low. Penn State, I don't want to say he didn't cost them the game, because there are certainly a lot of things that took place during that game that offense, defense, that they do well, they win that game. But he had a chance to win it and didn't. I mean, do you think about the Michigan State game and you don't think about those other things?
I think as a Michigan football player, I think you're trained. Even so, people might say kickers aren't football players, but you get trained in the.
You said that.
Some people might say that. I think I had 2 tackles against State my senior year.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyways.
After blocked field goals that they returned, you got to tackle them.
Around the 25-yard line, that is. So there's an ethos in Michigan football, and that's you play for the next. After that one game's over, you go to the next game, and I think Hoke's got that culture built that you're focusing on Michigan State. I heard earlier in the second you're talking about, we need to win all 5 games and to win the champion. It's the destiny's in it. No. The only game we can control is the game that's coming up. That's against Michigan State, and that's across the team. So I think Gibbons understands that it's all about this game, and it doesn't matter whether you hit the game to win the Sugar Bowl or hit the game last week. It's about what he's doing this week. And as a kicker, I mean, he knows that he can hit the kick, and when you come play football at Michigan, you want that kick. You want the opportunity to bury it from 42 yards to win the game. I mean, that's why you want that stage. And so, though I would say where it's a little different than where you mentally aren't quite like a linebacker, or an offensive lineman like Skeen, is that you're more like a golfer. So I don't want to call you a frat, but you have
every shot is a new shot.
Every shot is a new shot, but you can golfers get in ruts, right? And I think kickers can get those ruts too, but it doesn't take a lot to get out of that rut. When you're a quarterback, you're playing bad. For a kicker, it just takes one kick to get you back going. So you play for the next shot.
Yeah. So 21-21, fourth quarter, Gibbons game-winning field goal. You're like, this guy, he's got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, the other part of the element here is the punting game. And Mike Sadler, I saw this today, 42 punts this year, 19 of them inside the 20-yard line, 14 out of those 19 or 14 out of those 42 inside the 10-yard line. Yep. He's boomed. I think it's maybe like 12 of them have been 50 yards or more. I mean, I watched the game against against Illinois last week, and he changed the field position dramatically. Now we talk about that. The element here is, does Michigan's defense have to play with does Michigan State's offense have to go 80 yards? Is that Matt Wile's job to make them go 80 yards? And on the flip side is Michigan's offense have to go 80 or 90 yards because of the punting job of Mike Sadler? You've talked before on this show on Inside the Huddle about Kenny Allen and whether Kenny Allen. Here we are. Matt Wow had a good game a couple weeks ago against Minnesota. He averaged more than 50 yards a kick. He came back against Penn State, was kind of around 40 yards, which is a good but not great. And last week, 2 weeks ago against Indiana, was back in the 39 range. How concerned are you about the punting game on Michigan's end, going into knowing that Mike Sadler is on the other side of the field?
Man, we talked earlier that Bo and even Lloyd carried on the legacy of the most important play in football is the punt, and I don't know that fans understand that. It's when you play a game like Michigan State does, which is very similar to how Michigan used to play, is it's all about field position. You run the ball, you don't make mistakes on offense, you don't turn over the ball, and you have a great defense who just smothers teams. And so that's where the punt becomes really important, because if you can pin them back and you can give your offense field position, a couple first downs, you're kicking a field goal. A few first downs, you're inside the red zone. You're looking to score 7 points. And now they have a quarterback that they have some confidence in. They're willing to throw the ball. I mean, that's huge. That's huge for Michigan State. Wiley is very talented. Weil, not the pass.
He's not a coyote.
Wile's very talented. Obviously, I'm a big Kenny Allen fan, mainly because he's a walk-on and I was a walk-on, and I want to see him get in there. I think he can perform. He's got an amazing work ethic. But Wiley, he's got an amazing leg.
Yeah.
And you see it on kickoffs, but you see some of that inconsistency on kickoffs too. Will puts him out of bounds. And I think at this point in the season, it's his job. And so he needs to come out like he did 2 weeks ago against Minnesota, and he needs to bomb the ball at State. And you watch that. You watch the punting battle. No one's going to be watching that. No one's going to be caring about the punting battle.
You will.
I will be paying attention to it because State, they have the top punter in the league, if not in the country. That's going to be a huge advantage. He's playing in State. And I was saying earlier, that wind in State, it's like a swirl. Spath, can you at least... The other guys didn't know what I was talking about.
I understand what you're saying. I've been on the field before.
You've been down there? It's like... It doesn't... I swear, it didn't matter what way I was kicking off. Or it was like the wind was always just coming at me. Or
I think it rhymes with...
always in there, both going this way.
I think it rhymes with excuse. So...
I'm just saying, I think...
No, I know what you mean.
Their punters can be comfortable punting there. I think if Wiley can have a big game punting the ball, it will make a difference.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see how Weil does. But
Weil.
We'll get to you there.
Wild to Wiley to Weil.
Okay. Well, last element of this, and I know that you've bragged about this all the time about how you've caught the ball, you've run the ball, you've fumbled return. So you know about running with the football. And then the third element about this is obviously the return game. We saw, Dennis Norfleet is electric. We saw him have a big return against Indiana, brought it out to the 50-yard line. We really haven't seen anybody that maybe had this much energy since Steve Breston. At the same time, he had a return against Indiana where I don't even know what to call it. I mean, he did like a U-turn, and then he tried to do an illegal Michigan left turn, and he ended up getting taken down around the 10-yard line.
I was there.
And you saw it. I think his next 2 kickoffs, we didn't see any of that creativity of Dennis Norfleet. We saw him just, I got to get up the middle, I got to go. How does a kid like that has probably had, still kind of harkening back to his high school days where, hey, I could run around like crazy. No one was as fast as me. And if I made 8 different moves on the field, I could still break a big one. How does a kid like that finally start to figure out, this is what I need to do to be successful? I need to blend these 2 things together. He's
hearing it every week. And I bet when he was in film session on Sunday, he got an earful. You sit there and I was in there. We broke down offense, defense, and special teams plays. And you might have had some good plays, but man, they honed in on the bad plays. So yeah, he might have had some good returns. They were honing on that, I'm going to go left. Oh wait, no, I'm going to go right. No, I'm going to go left. As a kicker, I know you go north and south when you return the ball at Michigan. You go north and south, and that's what Breston was great at. He was quick, he was speedy, he could make a quick cut. Breston was there when I was there. I'm telling you, those yards on special teams are going to make all the difference. And when you get the ball inside the 2 yards inside the goal line, it's like, dude, take the ball at the 25.
Yeah.
When I was there, if you got the ball outside the 20, that was a good return. They're going to give you the 25, take it to 25. You get a couple first downs, you go on their side of the field. I don't think you try to be too creative as a returner. I just think their special teams is too good. So if they're going to put it 5 yards deep, I would kneel it, take the ball to 25.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, as Phil Brabs has told us, special teams are going to be key to this one. It gets often overlooked, but it's a big part of this, especially the way that Michigan State is kicking the ball. Mike Saylor is a great punter, and Michael Geiger has kind of stepped up and been a consistent kicker for him. As we're going on here, the Red Sox are scoring more runs. But we'll be back to talk a little bit about a sibling rivalry here and someone that's the big brother and the little brother, and how that talk probably needs to go away at this point. We'll be back at the Wolverine.com and the Arena Sports Bar. Welcome back to the Wolverine.com pregame tailgate show inside the huddle at the Arena Sports Bar. I'm not quite the MC that the man to my left, Doug Skeen, is, but
and not as good looking as the guy.
I'm not as good looking. Oh yeah, right. I'm not as good of a football player as the guy to my left. I'm slightly better than the guy to my right.
Intelligence.
No, you're right. You're
IQ.
right. You're right. He has a much better degree than me. He's much smarter. Makes a lot more money. He's married. Has a great family. A lot of things. So I can't compete with that. As you agree.
Okay, now that the resume's done.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about something that came up this week. I was surprised it came up, especially from who it came up from. Fitzgerald Toussaint on Tuesday being interviewed by the media. I'm a member of the media, so I can take some blame for this, although I wasn't there. But they asked him a little bit about the game 2 years ago. And he said, you know what, they were disrespectful. They told us as soon as the game ended, get off our field. And I'm sure as a player, there is a level of respect that takes place between these two teams, certainly between Michigan and Ohio State. And you expect them to treat you with that respect. And hey, you know what, you lost the game, that team won. Kudos to them, but don't just kind of shove us to the side. So Fitzgerald Toussaint was asked about that, and he brought up, well, they're our little brother. They're, and sometimes, things happen and stuff like that. But the fact that he even mentioned the little brother comment, Doug, when you heard it, I can see the way that you're responding right now. Did you roll your eyes? Did you say, what are you thinking right now?
Well, let's be clear about one thing. I never liked Mike Hart's little brother thing in the whole beginning. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. I don't like it when former players and certainly current players use that term now. Let's be real. This Michigan State football program is not the Michigan State of the John L. Smith or
Bobby Williams.
Bobby Williams, absolutely.
You name the coaches where they struggle.
Yep.
And let's give a little credit to what Coach D'Antonio has done there. Now, let's also be clear, that season where the little brother thing came out, in my opinion, D'Antonio was a master at what he did there. Because if you remember,
I do remember.
We lost to Appalachian State. He opened his press conference at his game with a moment of silence. He said, should we have a moment of silence for Michigan? Okay? Ha ha ha.
But don't you,
hang on, I'm not done.
Okay.
So, we go up there and we win the game, the kids have a moment of silence. Okay, now the gasoline's going both ways. And then Mike Hart steps up after that game, which all these games were extremely emotional, and he, in my opinion, played perfectly into Coach D'Antonio's hand and fueled the fire for the next years to come. And now we're still hearing it. And my point is this. When we would beat Michigan State, there are things that are said in the locker room that we never want to share outside that locker room because they can be perceived the wrong way, they're disrespectful, and it's just a locker room culture.
Yep.
And we say things as former players inside the room that don't come outside the room. And I just wish then Mike Hart would have demonstrated a little restraint and been a little bit more taking the high road like the head coaches do in this school and not said that. And now to hear it, and Denard said it earlier, and now Toussaint says it, it doesn't serve us well at all, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's, and I go back to, this is a life lesson my father taught me that said, if you win a game, the best trash talk you can say is to walk off the field with your back to them, knowing that you just won the game.
A good game, that's it.
And with Mike Hart, I think the thing that Mike Hart didn't think about it, and in the moment, the heat of the moment, you don't think about it, is that he's saying this, and he's not changing history here, but he's motivating the future.
Yeah,
and look at it, 4 years in a row. And here's my issue with, and I don't know how you feel about this, Phil, but here's my issue with Fitz Toussaint bringing it out is, if you're Fitzgerald Toussaint and you're making a little brother comment, yes, you won a year ago, but you didn't dominate them, and it's not like you've been dominating the series. They've won 4 or 5. And here we are talking about all this week about Michigan State being the bullies still, and Doug is an offensive lineman. I mean, you're looking at this realistically. Is Fitzgerald Toussaint in a position where he's going to go out there and rush for 175 yards?
Well, it'd be great if he did, but I don't know how that's going to happen. And again, it's just a matter of how we want to be as Michigan, and this is not how we've done things in the decades leading up to the little brother comment. And now this thing is talked about openly, and it's just not who we are, in my opinion. And the Go Blue thing, letting Go Blue above their stadium, this is not Michigan, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm with you, and I was shocked when he made that comment. I was not coached that way. We had the same coach. When he made that comment, I'm like, he must be getting a licking back at Schembechler Hall, because there's no way you make that comment publicly. Again, in the locker room, joking around with the guys you've been playing with for 4 or 5 years, yeah, you might share that type of language, but to come out and say that publicly, it killed me. And for that, the fact that it continues to live on, I just want to squash that. And Daniel Antonio, where was he before he was at Michigan State? He was at Ohio State, right?
Well, he came Cincinnati,
but he's an Ohio State guy. He understands the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, so he understands rivalry, and then he brings that to Michigan State. I think that's a big reason why State has stepped up their game against us. They value the rivalry, and I'll be honest, when I was there, State wasn't our top. We had Ohio State, we had Notre Dame. I would say Michigan State was probably number 3. Dan Antonio, comments that heart, it's all fueled, it's all played into Dan Antonio's game.
Yeah,
and
I think the interesting thing is that I find from our message board, and I don't want to call out our subscribers because certainly my paycheck comes from them, but I am surprised how little respect Mark D'Antonio gets. I'm surprised how little respect Michigan State gets. I mean, what they have done the last 4 people say like, oh well, as soon as now that Brady Hoke is here and he's recruiting at a higher level, Michigan State's just going to go back into the box that they're supposed to go into.
Coach D'Antonio, again, let's be objective football fans here. Coach D'Antonio put Michigan State football where they probably should have been all those years.
Agreed.
Which is in the top third of the Big Ten Conference.
Agreed.
He put them there, and they're going to stay there for a while. He knows how to coach. He's an emotional guy that can motivate. And I'm saying all kinds of nice things because I'm trying to be objective here. So for fans of Michigan to somehow dismiss the success that he's had you're not being real.
Yeah.
This is not the program where they just lined up and just killed themselves week after week after week. He's eliminated a lot of that, the kind of dumb things that killed him. Not all of them, but at the same time he's energized. So I'm kind of tired of praising Mark D'Antonio, but I have to be real here. This is a different football program, and so for fans to say that is just dumb.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing here is that in college football, maybe more than other sports, leadership at the top is such a big factor, and people want to dismiss. Well, Michigan State will go back to being Michigan State. Why? Because they've been in the past. That dismisses what is Oregon in the past? What is Stanford in the past? I mean, all these programs have great coaches and they've turned their programs around.
Northwestern.
And if it was all about the program and the program only, then 2008 to 10 never would have happened in Michigan. It's about the leadership at the top. And Mark D'Antonio, as long as he's at Michigan State, as long as he's in East Lansing, that is going to be a formidable foe. Now, if he leaves someday, if he leaves in 5 years, who knows? Because the next guy could be Bobby Williams, or the next guy could be John L. Smith. You never know. But for right now, give Michigan State its due.
Totally
Fair?
Yeah, it's fair. It's absolutely fair. You have to give them their due. They're a really good football team, and it's not much to say. You want to beat them because they're really good.
Yeah. Well, that leads us to our last little bit here from the Wolverine.com pregame tailgate show, which we're filming at the Arena Sports Bar. You can come here every Wednesday. Join Doug Skeen, former All Big Ten offensive lineman, Phil Brabs, the great game-winning field goal against Washington in 2002. Ron Simpkins was here, the All-American, and then there's the 4 of us that are just a bunch of schmoes. Let's put that on the resume real quick. A bunch of hacks that don't know what we're talking about, but well, Andy's giving me a look right now. He knows what he's talking about. He's a former football player.
He knows how to use this equipment, at least.
Yeah, he knows how. Yeah, right. I don't know how to use the equipment. So, looking at the game, I know. We'll ask Doug in a second because I know that he has Michigan going 12-0 this year, which now 11-1. So he's got them winning. But Phil, you had Michigan going 10-2. They've lost one game. Was this one of your 2 losses to Michigan State?
I had 4 games where I wasn't sure.
Was this one of your 2 losses?
No. I had 4 games where I thought we we're 50-50 all those games. You run the math, you win 2, you lose 2. This is one of those games that I thought could go either way. I think it comes down to emotions. It comes down to the turnover battle. It comes down to whether who comes out and wants it more. And I'm hoping we come out and want it more. But I think State's, because again, the last number of years and what Dan Antonio's done, they're going to be hungry. They're going to come out and they're going to be cheap shotting us. They're going to be holding us. And how are we going to respond to that? So I'm taking Michigan, but I'm saying this is one of the games where State's a good team. They're going to play good on defense. We turn over the ball, we lose.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you get Michigan State's defense score, or if they create short fields for their offense, that's going to be a big difference in this game. Doug, all week it's been talked about. Michigan State bullied us 2 years ago in East Lansing. They're the tougher team. I'm sure as an offensive lineman to give that respect to Michigan State and say, our offensive line, we don't know if we're going to get pushed on or not. That's got to be hard for you. Does Michigan...
no one said we don't know if we're going to get pushed around or not. No one said that.
No, true. But Brady Hoke said, essentially, this is a big game for us. This is a game we need to figure out.
Well, absolutely. This is a big game. There's no doubt about that. And the reality is that 2 years ago, we did get pushed around. Brady talked about it, and that's how we want to play without the assaults after the whistles. We don't want that.
Well, do they this week? Does Michigan respond in kind, like everybody is hopeful that they do? Does the offensive line assert itself and say, you know what? We are the bully. We are Michigan football, and we are taking this rivalry back. Do they do that? Do they beat State, in your opinion?
Yes, and that it's going to be a battle. This is going to be, and it's not going to be by much. And I think this is going to be a 1-possession, 2 3-point victory for Michigan because I have so much respect for that defense. I find it hard to believe that even with the talented players we have in our offense, we're going to carve up that defense. This is going to be a game about field position, execution up front. Emotion plays a large part of that, but Absolutely. It comes down to your feet and your hands and putting them in the right place and not turning the ball over. We turn the ball over 2 or more times, we will lose this game. But we're not going to do that, and we're going to win by 3.
Okay. 24-21, 17-14, just by 3.
13-10.
13-10. So the defense for Michigan rises up a little bit too.
Yep.
Greg Madison's a happy man come later today. Well, I said on Monday we did a Sports Report, a coaches show. I said, if you guys want to put my comments up there for bulletin board, go for it. Because I predicted Michigan State to win.
Like you did Notre Dame, just for the record.
I did. I predicted Michigan to lose to Notre Dame.
Did State beat Notre Dame?
No, they did not. But I also predicted Michigan to beat Penn State. So.
Okay.
Doug, where I'm coming from is I'm just looking at saying, I have not seen it yet. I have not seen this offensive line be the bully. I have not seen this defensive front 7 be the bully, and until I see it, I should be from Missouri. I'm a show me state kind of guy.
Well, I think Brady Hoke has said it. We've been streaky and inconsistent. You've seen flashes in one department, one position group's executing at a high level, and this one's not. Half the offensive line is getting it done, the other half's not. And you got to put up. If you go to a place like Michigan State, you better put it all together, or it's not going to.
And we had 2 weeks to put it all together. We came strong after going into the Minnesota game. 2 weeks, a lot of young guys, a lot of great coaching happened last week, a lot of strategy happened.
I'll tell you this.
It certainly, yes, it's going to happen.
Yes.
There's nothing to lose here and everything to gain.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think that's honestly works a little bit in Michigan's favor is that they are the underdog.
Yeah.
And they can come into this game saying, you know what, we can let it all hang out because we're not expected to win in this one. And if I see in that first offensive series, I see Michigan come out throwing the ball a little bit, backing them off, and then running it. And it's going to be that first carry. That first carry is a -1 yard.
Look out.
Yeah.
One down, and you're going to write it off.
I am going to write it off on one because in that first time that they run the ball, let's face it, they've been gearing up for that, as Phil said, for 2 weeks. If they get stuffed on that first run, if they give up a loss.
Play action.
Here's the first play of the game. Play action.
Play action.
Come on with 2 tights.
Yes.
Put your fullback back in there. Play action. Throw it over their head. There you go.
All right. Well, this is the Wolverine.com pregame tailgate show. We got 2 guys picking Michigan. We got 1 guy being a sellout, which is my job. We will know later today, and we'll be back next week for the Wolverine.com pregame tailgate show and Inside the Huddle. to talk about how I was wrong and these guys were right.
Go Blue.